Good afternoon and welcome. Great crowd in the room. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Ray Chang. Maybe you saw me this morning. I'm the treasurer of MIT Sloan Boston Alumni Association. It's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, George Westerman. Long story long. In 2009, we're going to start at the beginning of time. George and Richard Hunter published a book called The Real Business of IT. That book was based on research from MIT, Scissor, and Gartner, was named the #1 business book of the year by CIO Insight magazine. In 2010, George became a judge for the MIT Sloan CIO Leadership Award. And in 2011, when I became co-chair for the award, we adopted George's book as the guiding principles. 2013, George joined me as co-chair. 2014, George authored another book, so maybe there's another award coming, Leading Digital with Didier Bonnet and Andrew McAfee. And it is rumored that an industrious CIO read the book, gave copies to each of his direct reports, and promptly became the award winner the following year. That person may be on this panel, but I'm not promising. Oh, and by the way, George has a PhD from that other business school down the street, and we forgive him for that. So, George Westerman.
Thanks, Ray, for that introduction. This panel, I delight in CIOs. I love CIOs. I love to see what CIOs are becoming in this digital world. The CIO, the Chief Digital Officer, other things. And I'm just so excited to work with Ray and our other committee members in this award process. So we're trying an experiment this year, which is to take all the award finalists and put them on one panel together to talk about what they know about running IT. And of course, all the finalists also then are going to be on different panels around the day. Now, as all experiments go, they don't all work. And this one here, we had a little problem. One is one of our finalists, his wife is in the hospital. She's okay, but he can't be here today because he's with his wife, which is where he should be. And another one managed to get 102 fever or something this morning, so he's keeping us all healthy by not being here. So instead of being the current set of finalists CIOs for our award process, we have 2 of our finalists from previous years, and they're going to be helping us out here. And so we had to change the name of the panel. Instead of CIOs panelists of 2017, it's now the past, present, and future of the panel. Okay? So you with us on that? The other problem we have here is we have this wonderful script that we all decided we were going to talk about, and I don't know whether you could see this, but in the last 3 hours, it's all completely changed. And we figured that's agility, right? That's what IT should be about, and so we can talk about some of that when we do our process. So I'll introduce each of the people along the way, and we'll have a little conversation and move on to the next one. What I do want to say, though, is that these people just knock my socks off. When I read the awards, I'm amazed, and then trying to choose who the finalists are is really hard. And I'm just so impressed every day with the kinds of people that are out there running IT, and I learn from you guys every day. So why don't we start, Dave, with you? Dave Gledhill is the CIO and probably 2 or 3 other titles at DBS Bank in Singapore. He is actually the winner of our year this year, so congratulations, Dave. So Dave, just to start off, Euromoney magazine called DBS the world's best digital bank. And yet a few years ago, DBS was often thought to mean damn bloody slow. So how did you make that change happen?
Yeah, well, we're not that proud about the former title, but we'll take the new one. No, it's very true. When I arrived at the bank about 8, 9 years ago, the position was this. We're a sort of bloated Singapore bank. We were dominant in Singapore. We had 85% of the population as customers. We were sort of largest in the corporate space around the rest of the region. But we'd sort of got, I describe it as fat and lazy. Because everybody was our customer and as a culture, we hadn't really got to this idea of really how to deliver great service. And so damn bloody slow was actually very true. We had queues in our branches up to 2 or 3 hours long. We had ATMs that didn't work. We had, goodness knows how long it took to issue a credit card. And so we really had to, before we could transform ourselves into a true digital company, we had to fix a lot of the basics. And so we set ourselves this mission of being, we described it as the Asia Bank of choice, and we came up with a set of operating principles around what great customer service meant. And we defined that as RED service, respectful, easy to deal with, and dependable. And when you think dependable, you can't be slow and dependable. So really, those three things, everybody started to understand what that meant, that we had to be respectful, easy to deal with, and dependable. And whether you were a teller who was serving a customer and trying to get back to them, or whether you ran IT and a service had to be up, or a turnaround, it all had to follow those three red principles. And that went sort of viral through the firm and led to a whole load of measurements and led to us defining, okay, we want to be best in class, and we measured what best in class looked like. We put instrumentation in to achieve that best in class, and it drove a whole cultural shift through the organization. But it started top down of saying, we cannot be, if we want to be world class, we cannot operate this way, and therefore we have to get something which is going to shift the culture of the company.
And so, this idea of management by slogan, right? The idea of saying, this is where we are, this is where we need to be. And so you set that new vision out there. I'm an engineer, so that always bothers me that it happens, but this is real, right? This idea of setting a vision and communicating, that's really important.
That's right. In fact, that's the most important thing. Getting clarity of vision and mission, and then everybody's behavior links to that. And so, it would go in the call center. We cannot have a slow response at the call center because that doesn't hit dependable. And our mission is to be read and bank of choice, and therefore you can't do that. And therefore we must put money in it and invest in it and shift it and change it because it's part of our mission as a company. So really, right the way, and then the engineering comes bottom up because we had to engineer all our channels, we had to put measurements in, we had to start doing process improvements and journey thinking, but it all came from this goal of what we wanted to be and aspire to be as a company.
Thank you, cool. So Julia, you're next, and I know you've done your own kind of transformation, and what I see it as, and it's probably apocryphal to say it, but heck, I did say it, I said damn bloody slow, right? And that's it, you are not in Atlanta or New York or Chicago. You're in kind of this sleepy Georgia town. And so as you transformed IT in your organization, you actually had to do it with people who were already there rather than replacing them. Can you say a little bit more about the situation you were in and how you made that change happen?
Sure, that is definitely coming from Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half south of Atlanta, was a challenge that we're facing. We were dealing with a very typical mainframe shop when I got there. The only measurements I had in my hands when I first got there were how many lines of code we put in each release, and what was the customer sat, what was the customer satisfaction, what did people think about us. Well, as I started to talk to some of my peers the first couple of weeks I was there, I heard and understand very clearly why they weren't happy with the organization. We had a 39% on our customer satisfaction score. And everybody kept saying, you're in this big, beautiful building, and we don't know what you do. It's like this big black box, but you can't seem to get anything done or any output or we don't really know where all that money is going that we've been spending on IT. And what I realized is the challenge for us is we had never really benchmarked. We were so insulated and used to being in our own little world and doing things the way we've been doing them for the past 30 years, we didn't have a good idea of what good was. We didn't know what the measurements were. People weren't exposed to that. They didn't have a lot of opportunity to say, is this good or bad? Is this appropriate or not appropriate? And it was having to open up people's eyes to say, this is what the world outside of Aflac looks like. And I had to get people more educated in terms of getting them to external training, going to conferences, getting them out there and understanding what metrics and running IT like a business was all about. Having to change how they thought about the organization, shifting from a culture of we're order takers to we are consultative partners. And that was one of the biggest challenges because I wasn't going to do it through recruiting people from Silicon Valley. I knew I needed to adapt my culture and then start targeting some of the new folks coming in to the organization and start going after some of the colleges and building up our college program and building up our feeder system so that we could bring new people in and excite them about the new technology that we needed to invest in if we were going to transform the organization, not only from within IT, but also from within the whole business.
Thank you, thank you. And we're hearing this again now, and Dave said some of the same. Well, you got to make it clear that being the way we are, you got to make them, we have to be different.
Right.
And then putting those metrics in place so people know what to steer against. Just incredibly important getting there. Now, what did you do next? Well, you said, okay, now we can't do IT. I mean, IT's fine, but let's make the business better too. And so you launched this amazing thing. Oh, by the way, this is Julia Davis from Aflac. I didn't say that yet, the CIO.
You can see by the duck pin. The brand is very important to us.
He said, okay, let's not stop with IT. Let's go to the business. So you created paying claims in one day.
Yes, the one-day pay. I don't know if you've seen our commercials. We certainly advertise quite a bit. Marketing is very important to Aflac. We have 96% brand recognition. And the reason for that, the one-day pay became a very important initiative. was we were paying claims very quickly. That is an important tenet in our philosophy and our value system for Aflac is, unlike a lot of insurance companies, we're not looking for the float, we want to pay claims. We recognize we need to be there for our customer in their time of need. Well, the challenge we had is this was all through manual processes. This was manual procedures, manual ways to make that 4 days. It's a lot of people to throw at a solution. So as we were going through deciding how could we automate more of that, take more of the auto adjudication rules on, how could we process faster, leverage technology to move the process along quickly. Initially, when we started out, we went with the mindset of we need to do it the way we've always done it, which is it typically takes us 18 months to produce anything. That's how long it takes when you're dealing with all these mainframe platforms. And the reason it takes 18 months is we started to recognize it's because we had 20 number one priorities. And you can't have 20 number one priorities and expect to deliver in a timely fashion. You have to have focus. So I went to the CEO of the company and sat down with him and said, in order for us to do this, I need your commitment to take everything off our plate. The other 19 number one priorities have to disappear. This has to be our number one focus. We're working on nothing else. This is our mission, and we're marching to that mission. And by doing that, we were able to deliver the product and the whole solution, which included, believe it or not, actually finally doing, for the first time, automatic direct deposit, which we had never done before because our agents loved to get a paper check that they could hand over to the policyholder and say, look what I did for you, and hopefully upsell. So we had to change that whole philosophy about how we distribute and go to automation and deliver that, and we did it in 5.5 months. And that made all the difference for me going back and asking, okay, now that I worked on this one process, how can we transform the rest of the business? And because we were able to prove it, all of a sudden, the checkbooks opened up for us, and we were able to drive true transformation.
It's almost like you read my red book, right? Think about how you're going to be different, transform IT through some vision and some metrics, and then start to transform the business, and you get the opportunity to do more things. Interesting. Okay, great. So that leads actually, Michael, we're going to come back to you. We're going to go to Dieter first. Dieter Haban was a finalist in our award program on 2014. He's the CIO at Daimler Trucks, and he's out in LA. Dieter, you've been doing work not only in IT, but also working with outside and changing the business, which isn't things that IT people all get to do, right? So we have some great examples, but you've done this too. What's your favorite story of how you've changed the business outside of IT?
So I can ask you what you think is the biggest mobile device. A truck. The truck is the biggest mobile device. So because we equipped our truck with, let's say, a telematic unit that sends data to us, and we are also able to send data to the truck. So we communicate with the truck. So if you imagine you have all the trucks equipped with this device, that's, first of all, a lot of trucks. Second, a lot of data. And we collect, let's say, a lot of data points, which generates a lot of big data. And then what we're going to do with that data is keeping a truck on the road, making a better customer experience, and also getting our uptime of the truck. So the truck is only making money if it's on the road. So what are we doing with it? So you connect also the ecosystem around it with the dealers, with the service points, with our parts distribution center. So all these ecosystems drive towards keeping the truck on the road and keep it running so the customer can make money with it. And there's more to it. So I guess also like supporting the customer with fleet information. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this information. So this is a big change. When I look at a few years ago, IT was all about keeping your, let's say, mainframe running, keeping your, let's say, phones running, the printer running. Yes, you still have to do that. But in order to get to the next level, to the next innovation level, this was really, it's very exciting, and it's a never-ending story.
So this is really cool. How many of you have been driving down the road and the light goes on your car that says, check engine? Have you ever had that problem? Right, and what do, right? How many of you take it in for repair? Yeah, and when you take it in repair, you basically, the repair person says, give me $1,000, I'll tell you tomorrow what I spent it on, right? So that's, how many of you wait and see what happens and you hope it goes away? So, and I guess the rest of you just fix it yourself, is that what the answer is, right? So what they've just done, imagine what Dieter can do now. When the check engine light goes on and you're zooming down the car in your big rig, they call Daimler, and Daimler calls them right back and says what to do. No waiting, no worrying about it. That's the kind of thing that you can do with this telematics. That's amazing. So Dieter, now, you've done that, right? Yep. But you originated that within IT.
Yeah.
So how did you get them to listen?
We have a very good relationship with our, let's say, we formed a new division, the telematics connectivity division. So mainly half of the team is IT and the other half is the business. So we work very close together and the team is actually co-located. So it's really like getting ideas into there, talking to, let's say, the business, understanding the process, and really working together and driving the business process with IT. So the business has an idea, or IT has an idea. So you really don't know who's IT and who's business. I think that's the key thing. And mainly, as George said, when you have this yellow light, it's hard to open the trunk and say, oh, there's an engine in it. So it's so complicated, so you want to know what's really going on. So the easiest information, which is a lot of work behind the scenes, is, yes, you're fine. We already alerted the service station, or keep on driving, you're still fine to go, or stop right now, we send someone. And then if you tell you, in the best case, keep on driving, but visit the service station, then we connect the dots and say, okay, this is the nearest service station. They're waiting for you. We have the parts, the primary failed parts on hand, and we already reserved the service day for you. So make this a seamless activity. So actually, back to your point, sitting with the business together and have this, let's say, co-location, co-innovation, that's very key. And then working in also, let's say, agile, Scrum mode, and also sometimes you need other disciplines that you pull in, and this is how we do that.
Well, thank you. Now, if you can just do that for my Toyota minivan.
Get another car, get a Mercedes.
All right, so on to Michael Nilles. He's the CIO and the Chief Digital Officer at Schindler. Schindler makes elevators and escalators and all other kinds of cool things to move you around buildings. Now, Michael, you were the CIO when you won our award last year, and now you're the Chief 2 years ago, and time flies. And now you're the Chief Digital Officer. So tell us, you've been building this big vision on how Schindler's more than an elevator. It's a whole digital thing. Tell us about that digital vision you've been building up.
Yeah, so let's say about 5-6 years ago, we were sitting together and thinking about what can we really do in order to defend our core business, elevators and escalators. And if you look at our business model, we are not just engineering, installing them. There is a huge portion in terms of revenue and of profit, as you can imagine, is the service business. And this was certainly a big likelihood to become disrupted by other platform providers. So we were thinking about first how to defend that. And we came up with connecting our customers, connecting our products. So a similar challenge what Daimler went through, Daimler Trucks, in connecting your installed base. That's by itself, by IoT, a huge challenge. We were then connecting our workforce in the field. This is more than 30,000 people with a digital tool case. Ultimately, you need to make use of the data to execute on them. And last but not least, it was really the data that you can do something with them and start to monetize that. That was, I would say, the first phase. And then the more and more we advanced and we matured into this journey, we were starting to realize there's a huge asset within our business model, because we are moving every day 1 billion passengers on our equipment. And so we were thinking about that's really a great opportunity, moving more into an offensive strategy. And this is nowadays what we call smart urban mobility. And so think about a building. You walk into the building, Schindler will recognize who you are. We seamlessly bring you to the right floor, to your office desk or to your apartment. And of course, that is going to become more and more an integral part of an entire smart city or smart world, connected world ecosystem play. And so we were really asking ourselves the question, do we want to be just a component in the future, just the elevator in this smart city, smart environment, or do we want to become a major ecosystem player? And that's really where we are shifting to. Have also founded about 3-4 years ago an own entity for that, an own division, Schindler Digital Business, which is then looking into exactly going to further develop that business. So that was really the shift from more internal optimization or internal transformation to making digital, or in general, digital, industrial, and new business model.
Great. So you've been able to make this change now from, that'd be the last step in our Real Business of IT book. You are now not just CIO or CIO, what we call the CIO plus, right? Your CIO plus digital. But that also means that now you're running digital. What's your relationship with the IT organization?
Yeah, we have decided, and I think that there was a good rationale for that, to keep IT reporting into the digital organization. So these are not two separate organizations, because you need the horsepower of IT. Certainly, you need to make sure that you are able to keep the normal, let's say, the internal CIO scope and IT running. But in order to transfer into the digital world, IT itself is playing a major role. Beside of that, you have certainly the classical, traditional R&D who are more and more advancing from a hardware business. So think about an elevator, which was majorly mechanical, maybe a little bit electronic driven, and nowadays it's really becoming a software product. So the more and more you move up into this, the software stack also for your hardware-related products. So it's really important that the horsepower of IT and what you call operational technology or classical R&D embedded systems is becoming part of that. Otherwise, you are just a paper tiger, right?
So it reports up through you. You work very closely together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. Great, thanks. And Dave, you launched a digital bank, right? So you got these physical banks, but then you moved to a digital-only bank too. So what's your relation then between the digital and the physical, between the digital and IT?
Yeah, so really that was a solution to a big problem that we had as an organization, which is how to scale. Obviously, Singapore is only a certain size, and we were dominant there. How do you scale in India, Indonesia, China, etc., without physical presence? And we had a go at branching out and doing it physically. It's virtually impossible in a country like India, where each branch you have to apply for. We tried taking over a bank in Indonesia and got shut out by the regulators. And so really, digital was the only way that we could really develop and expand the business. And so we decided to think about what a digital-only bank would look like and how you deploy that in a country like India. And we came with this notion of, many people say mobile first. We said, what about mobile only? And we launched and created a mobile-only digital bank. There is no internet platform, there are no branches, there's no physical presence at all. And yet it's a fully fledged bank. It can take deposits, it can serve interest. We're pushing out loan products soon, and unit trust, investments, purely mobile. But then you have some challenges to overcome. So the first one is, how do you identify customers? Typically you've got to go to a branch at least to open an account and show your ID and things like that. Fortunately, we could play into some ecosystems. And one of the ecosystems in India is this, what they call this India software stack, where the India government is pushing out ID verification automatically, payment solutions, etc. And one of the things they have is a ID card with a thumbprint. And so if you can get a thumbprint and match it to the ID card, you've verified that person. Question is, how do you get the thumbprints with no branches? And there we partnered up with an equivalent of Starbucks in India. It's called Cafe Coffee Day. They have 600 coffee shops around India, and we gave each one of them a little thumb reader. It's $20, and we integrated that to their point of sale terminal. So it was like latte, cappuccino, DBS bank account. And all of a sudden, we had massive scale and the ability to open fully fledged bank accounts across the country. And our service model is using AI chatbot, which we partnered with a company down in New York called Casisto that does AI chatbots for banking. That handles 85% of all customer inquiries without handing off to a physical person.
And that's fascinating because we talk about, let's take 20% or 30% out of cost. You're taking 100% out of cost with that chatbot.
Yeah, so really we reduced number of people required to service a similar population of customers by 90%. So only 10% of the people.
Cool, okay. Well, thank you. So, one of the things we wanted to do with this panel is get you to see the stories of these amazing leaders. But it is a panel, so we should do some questions too. So, Ray, you got some questions. I'll start off with a question. Is anybody doing questions through the apps?
I haven't seen any yet.
Okay, well, I'll start off with a question, then we can decide at that point. So the first question I've got is for the panel, and anybody answer this who wants to. I'm seeing an awful lot of CIOs who don't have any technical background at all. They're coming in as business people, and they have audacity to come in and try to fix IT. And actually, a lot of them do it really well. So first of all, how many of you are IT people as a background? Wow, okay. And how many of you are business people? Well, okay. So how do you feel about these business people thinking they can come do your job?
Well, I know as someone with a technical background, I would obviously say I don't want them in there, but I'd like to see more technical folks get in there. But I understand why they're there. I think we have to face that reality that If we stay too much in our we're operational, focus on the operational aspects of IT, we focus on execution and just doing what we need to do to keep the lights on, that's why they're bringing other people in. We're not talking the language of business. If you can't do that as an IT person, you can't understand what the business problem is and help them solve for that, you're not gonna move up. They're not gonna invite you in. And I think that's where we've seen an introduction of people coming from other areas, is because there's been a difficulty in being able to relate to people in technology, and it makes it easier to talk to someone that, hey, from marketing, let's put them in charge of digital. They got great ideas, they're innovative, but can they execute? They'll work with IT to figure that out. But you want to make sure that, I think as a CIOs, you need to make sure you understand what your business is and you're able to talk to them in a language that they can converse with you in.
Go ahead.
I think everyone knows how IT works and thinks they can do your job better than you. I think I cannot do specific jobs, so I cannot do finance. Yes, I do finance, but I cannot do the finance job. I cannot do, let's say, engineering jobs. At the end, when we work as a team, it really doesn't matter who's doing what. So if you work as a team, some people come from different disciplines. And at the end, it's really like looking at a solution and who can contribute to that. So again, from that point of view, it's really like how we work together as a team approach. I feel like IT, you need some background because I'm just like, oh yeah, make it happen. And then there's a very complicated set of things you have to do. And we talked before, is that by just talking about it, it's not done yet because the world is very complicated in IT. And so in order to know some of that helps a lot to make realistic targets and to make it really happen. So it helps a lot. And you have to have, let's say, your good team, and you have to trust when they say it takes 3 months, it takes 3 months and not 3 years.
And then your team also, if you really need 3 months, you don't say that you need 10 months.
Yep.
So you have to deliver too. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Maybe I can add something. I think all of us who worked in the field of IT, maybe in the mid of the 2000s, we had our typical self-identification crisis where we were saying that was when business process reengineering, all of that were happening. And usually you would think about in the early days of your career, when now it's time to move up into the business. And you maybe remember when you were saying that you are able to code, you've even had to feel ashamed, right? And this has now dramatically changed. So the people who work in the technology field, they are having a fantastic future. It has become really relevant now with the whole digital journey. And nowadays, you have a lot of business people who are coming to you, trying to apply for a job and say, there was a time when in my studies I had also coded a little bit. So that is really telling the story. And I think there's a lot of truth in it. How well can you bring someone from the business side, make him familiar with technology, or the other way around? How can a technology leader become more, let's say, understand business models and so on? So both is possible, but certainly without knowing the technology, it's damn difficult and getting more and more difficult in the digital age.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jim Fowler from GE this morning, I don't know how many of you saw him, but he said, we have not hired anybody from the top schools in the last 5 years who doesn't know how to code. Yeah. And not into IT, but into anything. Just to get that kind of understanding. It's really fascinating.
How many languages do you speak? Then you usually ask.
Hey, I speak COBOL.
I think actually it's shifting. I think it's shifting more and more because just because you used to be able to do IT doesn't mean you can do new IT.
Yeah.
And really, I think what you have to realize as a leader is what you knew about the mainframe does not apply to where the future is heading. And so I think actually, frankly, it's a much deeper engineering discipline than it ever was before. And I think the breadth of knowledge that you have to have about modern capabilities and how to build and lead teams around those modern capabilities is even more important. I spend a huge amount of my time retraining myself to become relevant in the new age of IT, which is fundamentally different. And that, you kind of take some scars from going through some, getting back to basics, but you got to retrain yourself to the modern world, otherwise you will not be able to lead yourself into a digital future.
So this was a question for Julia here. Julia, how long did your culture transformation take, and how did you get the business to be patient while you were doing that?
Well, the culture transformation is ongoing, so I'm not going to say it's over. It's still going on. It's a slow process. It is not an overnight, there's no light switch you can flip and the next day this is who you are. Our Agile journey has been slow but steady and improving every day. And surprisingly enough, I actually found some of the most successful Agile teams were actually on working and supporting some of our mainframe environment, which you'd think is kind of contrary to what you would expect. But they actually, it was the concept of the team and working together and the peer reviews and the peer coding that they've really embraced and taken off with. And the productivity that we've seen out of switching over to that has been absolutely amazing, that people are jumping on board. They're wanting the training, they're wanting the education. I think it was sort of like they were sitting there waiting for somebody to give them that push. Because by nature, IT people do like change. That's just part of your DNA. You like to learn new things, try new things. I can't say it's been 100%. You always have your detractors. But the reality is I'm going to have a lot of this old stuff for a long time. So there still is a role for them. And making sure people understand what's the right fit and the right place to put them. But the other part of the evolution is, again, what we were 4 years ago, what we were 2 years ago, what we are today, and where we are a few years from now are all different. The environment is constantly changing, and if you aren't prepared to adapt and modify with the changing times, you will die out. So that's very important to make sure that we stay up with what's going on and keep current.
So we have a question, just if you just give us a number, and we can come back to that in a minute, but this is an interesting question. What percentage, tagging on to what you were saying, you were both saying, what percentage of your IT workforce will not be able to make the jump to the new digital skills? Just give us a number.
30%.
30%.
Yeah, I would say it's about 30%,
Okay.
30 to 25, 30.
I think less, maybe 15, because you bear in mind you need to keep your back-end systems running. Even if you have the nice, shiny digital stuff, connectivity and so on, you still need SAP folks and so on in order to keep the business running. So I would say maybe 15, but that was like a natural
Great.
conversion.
Peter? Give us a number.
100%.
100% will not be able to make it.
No, I will make it.
Oh, okay, good.
Just yeah, will make it.
So this is actually really interesting because these are lower numbers than I thought, right? That somehow you think that everybody will be able to get there if they're retraining themselves or if they're working through a new culture, you'll get them there. And that's actually really exciting as leaders to see that, and also probably for the IT people. They don't need to be so scared, right? So listen, here's another question, and we've been talking about it a little bit, but it got 4 votes, so it's probably worth answering again. This idea of engaging and partnering with IT instead of being a support function. Can you give a couple strategies or examples on the idea of going from order taker to strategic partner? What do those conversations look like to engage with them? Anybody want to jump on that?
Well, I'd
Go ahead.
start. You have to have a seat at the table.
Okay. And what if you don't?
If you don't, then get a seat at the table.
Okay.
Because if you don't have the seat at the table, you'll always be the order taker.
Okay.
And fortunately, I sit on the executive committee of the firm, and we don't feel like IT is a separate thing or an order taker or whatever. It's just part of the business. It's part of what we all do, and it's part of our whole digital strategy.
Okay.
But if you don't have a seat at the table, get one, or join a company where you can get one.
So what if you're in the middle, and so your boss has a seat at the table, but you don't? What strategies would they have then?
Well, I have to say one of the ones that's really worked well for me is thanks to all the breaches that have been going on. They're scared to death of information security breaches. So you basically say, look, if you don't want that to happen, you need to get IT engaged, and we'll make sure you'll be protected. And that actually has been their fear of being public and having an issue come up has really helped IT get a seat at the table, I think, and get us more engaged in the process and recognizing if you were going off and doing something in a vacuum, that's not the right approach. We don't want another situation, in our case, like Anthem, to get out there and be in the publicity and cause all these issues, and then all these regulatory and fines that you have to pay as a result of that. So that's part of the challenge. But in reality, a lot of it is you have to learn to work as a team, as you mentioned, with your business partners. You've got to be able to check the egos at the door. It's not about turf protection. It's about who really is best at this area and finding a way to interact with each other. I think that's been one of the keys for me is, believe it or not, as a CIO, I actually get along with my marketing department. I know that's a rarity. A lot of times it's a fight between the two, but we've learned to find a healthy way to work it out, to know that I'm there as a partner to them to keep them out of trouble, but they got great ideas that I need to be open to and get them the right resources to help them execute and deliver on that.
I would say it starts from the very top. The awareness that IT is business. And I'm happy to be in a company that did that over some time. It takes some time. And it's really like driving digital transformation into the company. So it really starts from the top. So as you said, it's really like sitting with the business together and discussing. So like, oh, there's IT. Oh, we forgot you guys. So you have to be, let's say, in front of the wave, not behind the wave. And this is what happens right now. And yes, sure, you have to still deliver all the basic stuff. And I'll give you one example for the basic stuff. If you don't do your basic stuff, they don't listen to you when you talk about innovation and digital transformation. One basic stuff is your phone, the printers, and all this typical IT stuff that people think this is IT. And when I said my vision a year ago was help desk should be 0, so no more help desk calls. So my help desk should disappear. I said, oh, you're crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy, now you know it. And what we did over a certain time is you say, if my help desk calls us 0, what does it mean? Very simple. Everything works. Everything works so that users don't need a manual. And you don't need to call because it's just taken care of. So what happened, like a year later, we're down by 50%. So this has to work, and then you can talk innovation, then you can talk your great things, and then you believe that you do the digital transformation.
So and we've got time for one more question, but I want to put in one example I heard from a CIO. Yeah. He said, listen, it reminds me of back when I was a teenager, and I really wanted to meet that girl, but I had nothing I could talk to her about. But she was really into soccer. And so I started playing soccer and learning about soccer, and then we had something to talk about. And then I had that seat at the table. And so another thing to think about, if you're not at the top, you don't have that seat at the table, figure out what's important. Figure out what really drives the business. And then you can start to have those conversations like, hey, have you thought of this? Or that kind of thing. It can be really helpful as you go through. So we have time for one more question, and I'll just ask it. Michael, Dieter, you're already in this role, but the two new finalists, you get to be in this role. One of the joys of being a finalist is not only getting the recognition of being one of the best CIOs in the world, it's also you get to be the judge for next year's award process. So if just a quick kind of statement from each of you as we go down the line, as you think about the future CIOs that are going to win this award, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I would say, are they truly in the game and truly leading with the leadership team, the transformation of the business or the company?
Great, thanks.
And for me, metrics. Where have you been? Where are you? And where are you going? That makes a difference.
Yeah, I think really the entrepreneur in the company who is driving the company towards digital. That's my play.
I agree with the first statement. So IT is business. So this is really like looking at how does IT change the business world, and that IT is really part of the business.
So those of you aspiring CIOs or current CIOs, take this advice, apply to our award process again next year, and we look forward to meeting you. I'd like to thank the finalists here, and thank you for sharing your stories.